We are servants at war. We're listening, Lord, to hear your command. And we have cast fear aside. We stand purified, 'cause we're tested by your word. And we are ready to fight and lay down our lives. We will obey, and we will fall on the rock and pour all we've got out on a dying world. We are broken vessels of light, piercing the night, consumed with your blazing light. We're a kingdom on fire. We're a kingdom on fire. We're advancing power. Broken vessels of light. And we're proclaiming the truth. United we'll lose all those chains of hell. And when we're marching as one, the force of the sun shines for the victory. Broken vessels of light, piercing the night, consumed with your blazing light. We're a kingdom on fire. We're advancing power. Broken vessels of light. Piercing the night, consumed with your blazing light. We're a kingdom on fire. We're a kingdom who better be on fire. I'll never forget, Bishop, when you preached that series of sermons on Gideon. I think we all were beginning to feel like we were Gideon experts. I think it was 6 or 7 sermons on Gideon. I don't think you even realized what a prophetic word that was, not only for this church, but for us as a family. To have the spirit of the 300, to be those broken vessels of light, to be those that would boldly proclaim the trumpet, the rhema word of God. It sounded really good. I remember when Bishop first started preaching on Gideon, I thought, oh, that's great. The spirit of the 300, we get to be warriors. You know, war sounds really great when you first get into it. You get your uniform, you know, how the Marines do, and they get that dress, blues or whatever it is. Everything's looking good until you get in war. And then all of a sudden you find out that war is dirty. There are real casualties out there. There are real wounded people out there. There really is an adversary that we're facing. There are real missiles. There are real darts that are trying to destroy you. War sounds great till you get in the middle of it. But I'm convinced if we had not had this series of sermons rooted deep within our spirit, we wouldn't have made it the past 4 years. We've learned so much about the spirit of the 300. Gideon first had to say to his 32,000, if you're full of fear, you might as well go to the house. Donnie told me, honey, Gideon didn't say, y'all go to the house or go to the house. I told him, honey, I said, he may have been from Georgia. We don't know what he said, southern Israel or somewhere. Y'all just go into the house if you're full of fear. I've learned something. It's not just because God was angry with those that were full of fear. He loved them so much. He says, if I let you on the front line and you're full of fear, you will certainly be destroyed. So I love you so much. If you're full of fear, just go on back and you wait by the stuff and you pray. But if you're full of fear, you can't go on the front line. We learned that perfect love casts out all fear. What God was saying to Gideon, he's saying, Gideon, if they're not walking in love, don't send them to the front line. If they have prejudice against black people, don't send them to the front line. If they have prejudice against white people, don't send them to the front line. If they're prejudiced against the Baptists, don't send them to the front line. If they're prejudiced against ministers and clerical callers, don't send them to the front line. It's amazing me how that little piece of plastic upsets some people where we go. My. Gideon was saying, if you don't like women in ministry, you better not go to the front line. You better walk in love if you're going to be one of those courageous 300. And that love will cast out all that fear in you. We've learned about walking in love. We've learned the last 4 years when crazy people walk up and say, well, Dottie, why aren't you healed? Is there secret sin in your life? You just learn to look at them and say, poor thing. They don't even know what they're talking about. Father, forgive them. They don't even know what they're saying. And you just walk in love anyhow. You just walk in love anyhow. Because if fear gets in you, it'll destroy you. Then there were 10,000 left because 22,000 of Gideon's 32,000 were full of fear. So now he had 10,000, and God said, you still got too many, Gideon. Let's go for a little test at the water. Let's go for a test at the Word. Let's see how many of them know how to drink for themselves. Let's see how many of them are more concerned with the battle than they are for their own need to drink. I get tickled, Bishop. Sometimes pastors walk up to us before we go into a service and they say, oh, Reba and Donnie, I've looked at your itinerary. You did over 365 services last year. Aren't you exhausted? And Donnie and I just kind of grinned and said, no. You know why? Because we've learned how to drink for ourselves. We are real smart. We have Bishop's tapes going on that bus. We are learning how to drink for ourselves. 300 men that knew how to drink. 300 men that had a hearing ear. They didn't even hear Gideon. They heard God. No matter how strange the weapons, it wasn't what they were used to. It wasn't the bow and arrow. It wasn't the javelin. It wasn't the spear. It was silly weapons like trumpets and lights. But I'm convinced if God says it could have been bubble gum and baseballs. It wouldn't have mattered if it was God's idea. And those 300 men had a hearing ear. How many times have I heard our pastors say, reach up and anoint your ears and pray for that listening ear, pray for that listening heart.